The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. Oh, is that what we're talking about? No, there goes my feedback problem. Okay, good deal. Hey, it's Friday. I can't believe it's Friday already, but here we are. Oh, I'm still wearing this. Sorry, we were out sheep herding today, or something else. There we go. Well, hi everybody. It's Friday Pie Day, or as we like to call it, drama. This is the using Raspberry Pi as a learning tool and as some fun projects on Friday. It's conducted by me, Dave Rush, and it's an Ask Me Anything. We combine this with Raspberry Pi Ask Me Anythings and CompTIA Ask Me Anythings and anything else that you want to talk about. So since I am Dave Rush and it's Ask Me Anything, we call that DRAMA, it's drama. And I know, I see all the regulars here, you all know that, but there's always some new faces now and again. So if you're new here, looking forward to meeting you and talking to you and sharing thoughts. Definitely check in. Everybody, I need questions. Let me fix a little bit of problem from last week. I made a lot of notes and had a lot of projects, and we ran long, and I'm not going to let that happen again. I had a 19-page outline, something like that. That was enough for about 2.5 hours worth of material, and I won't do that to you again. Today's outline is 11 pages, so that comes way under 2 hours. So I want to make sure we get to lots of questions, and I have some really interesting ideas to sort of prompt you with questions. I've got some really fun stuff for us to do today. A little bit of practical stuff. I know that last week going over the file system was, but we're boring. It was boring, but we're done that. I've got a little bit of listy kind of stuff to get out of the way today. And that takes care of, to my mind, all of the listy, drony junk that we've had to get through. So remember, this is a series. I think this is our third one in the series where we are using the Raspberry Pi as a tool to help us learn and prepare for CompTIA exams, number one. Number two, however, I am, I guess, kind of an evangelist of the Raspberry Pi. So I want to show and share with you some neat things that it can do. I want to help you use it, or so that you can just learn about Linux in general and the Pi in specific. So it's a really cool kind of thing, a kind of cool series and a great product. So as always, my gratitude to Mike for sharing this time with me. He's normally does 3 days a week, and he's moved that a little bit till 2 days and given us this third day to play around with. Of course, my great thanks to the behind and sometimes in front of the screen folks. There's Scott J. He's watching diligently and sending me back channel notes and reading your messages, make sure I don't miss anything, and adding some emphasis, answering questions for himself. Michael Smyer is doing the techno background, and we'll bring him in as necessary. He knows more about Linux than I do by far and away. In fact, that's something I wanted to kind of point out. I'm not a Linux guru. I'm pretty good with the Pi. I am functional with Linux. There are things that I don't know. And even as I was prepping for this class and every class that I have prepped for, there are kind of hand slap moments, palm slap moments where I say, oh, wow, you can do that too. So cool bananas. So we do AMAs 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 o'clock Central Time. Mike does normally Mondays and Wednesdays. Sometimes he has a guest speaker. Sometimes he has a feature presentation. Sometimes he just takes questions from the chat feed, and sometimes a little bit of all of the above. Sometimes Scott and I get to help out, or maybe even do the show while Scott's on, or while Mike is on the road and fill his big shoes. That's a tough thing to do. And then today we are doing our own AMA. So again, feel free to ask questions on anything you want. Sec plus, A plus, ITF plus, Network plus, the industry, whatever you got in mind. And if you've got specific A plus question, or A plus, Pi plus, how that questions, then by all means, post them, we'll take a look. If you can't get your question through, if you have a more complicated question, if you want to talk it with us in greater depth, we encourage you to do that. And we have a method. It goes something like this. We flip over to that page, bing. So generally, this one's a me contact. You can get, if anybody needs other contacts for Mike or Scott, just post that up on the feed and Scott will answer that. You can provide emails and whatever else. But the normal way to contact me is daver@totalsem.com. Anybody over at TotalSem, first name, last initial at totalsem.com. If you want to contact my personal day-to-day email, I get, I don't know, 50 to 100 emails a day on that. You may get lost in the shuffle, but I will answer you sooner or later. We got a whole week between these things, right? Please don't send them both. I get both of them all the time. If you catch me on Steam, I did get a little bit of Borderlands time in this week, as I promised. It was very little, but you'll find me as Blood Rush TX. And there's the office number. If you want to talk to one of us in person, we are not there. Nobody is there. But the phones are answered. And if it's a crisis, if something you got to talk to one of us, the people on the phones will make that determination. And if so, they'll find a way to get us in contact. Because you are kind enough to join us for these Ask Me Anythings, we have a special deal just for you. It's a super deal. This week, we're offering 50% off of all Total Tester standalone products. And we've got a lot more than the basic CompTIA Plus. There's CySA Plus and AWS stuff. And take a look. Go over to totalsem.com and take a look through all of those products that we have and dig up Total Tester, find out the various Total tests. They are great, really cool tests. Michael Smyer wrote and supports let's say most of the this Total Tester product. It looks and acts like a CompTIA test. It's very powerful. It's very flexible. It's very configurable. You can take tests in all kinds of ways, specify chapters that you want to take, whatever. So when you pick up the product, put in the code MMLiveComet at the checkout, and it's good through August 16th, 2 days from now. If you're a teacher, contact Kathy Yale, Kathy Y at totalsem.com. She has remote learning gifts for you, and talk to her about some of our Pi products. So there's cool stuff in there. All right, moving on through the notes. Oops, looking at the wrong thing there, Goober. There we go. Did that, and that. Hey, look at that. All right, so let's take a look, see who's checked in. And now I made a change to this. Let me see if I can find what I've done here. Ah, there it is. Something bad is going to happen when I click that. Oh, I see. Okay, we can do it this way, most likely. Sorry about this. I've done some new stuff with the Pi last night, the night before, and the night before. And as such, it's kind of changed around the way I do my screens. So, problem solved, mostly. There we go. All right, so I'm looking at faces and people. Starting at the beginning. Hi, Tullowit. Hello, Brendan. Nice to see you. You passed it. Congratulations. That was exactly what I was hoping to see. I think the last message I posted to you is the first thing I want to hear from you is your pass report for A+. So you are now fully A+ certified. Congratulations. That's wonderful. And now you can take that certification and move your resume higher up in the pile, as Mike would say. Only 3 PBQs and 80 questions. Wow, that is the lowest number of PBQs that I have heard in a long time. I've heard less farther back, but you just never know. You're going to get anything from 1 to 9, 3 to 7 being common. So you're in that 3 zone. The more PBQs you get, performance-based questions, the less multiple choice questions you get, and vice versa. So theoretically, if you got 0 PBQs, then there would be 90 questions. So that one's kind of interesting because usually when I get these reports, I sort of kind of figure on a 100% basis. So what do we got? We got 900 possible points, 80 multiple questions, only 3 PBQs. Well, do it this way, call it PBQs. 1 PBQ in your test was worth 3 multiple choice questions. That varies from test to test. Again, I have seen other conditions where 1 PBQ is worth up to 10 multiple points. So I've seen 7 and 8 questions and people PBQs, and people would only get 60 or so multiple choice. But you passed, you did it, and congratulations. That's wonderful news. Hello, Falak. Nice to see you here. That looked like my witness protection gear. Yeah, I'm not saying anything. Hello, Eric Verdusco. Nice to see you, sir. Brendan, my advice, for sure, get total tester and practice test simulations. It will save you. Can't agree more. Well done. And 50% off all total tester standalone products today. So now is a great opportunity to take advantage of that. Falak, what is the difference between a PIV card and CAC, apart from CIC is a different version of the PIV card? I'm totally stumped. My mindset is not where yours is right now. That sounds like a Sec Plus question, and I haven't dug into Sec Plus in any kind of depth, or the new one lately. So I'm going to let Scott, and there we go. I see a back channel communication, and Scott says, I answered Falak. Problem solved. Good, because that one totally threw me. Yeah, but Scott is in the middle of writing Sec Plus, so if that's a Sec Plus, he's going to be very current on that. Can you configure PIs to act as a multiprocessor computer? Depends on what you're asking. Who's that? That's Transplant. No, it's not. That's Tolowit. First of all, it's the current model is a 4-core model, and there is a multi-core support 64-bit operating system for it. So we can take advantage of all cores. I didn't bring the pile down, but yes, you can cluster them if that's what you're asking, and get them to work together on a cooperative project. So certainly, and believe me, I got that one in my notes, and it's not too far into the future. We're getting all this baseline stuff out of the way, and we're going to get into some really fun projects. So hopefully, Tolowit, that's what you're asking, and the answer is yes, I believe. Evangelist and concert. Okay, so the concert tee here today is an Easter egg. It is for my Ohio compatriots who join us on occasion. This is a regional band who was big in the 80s. They had a little bit of one or two nationwide songs, and I know one or two of the folks from the band, including the lead singer. So I used to help run his email system. I don't do that anymore. But there's an Easter egg for you Ohioans and upper Midwesterners who will remember MSB, the Michael Stanley Band. Hello, Alice. Very nice to see you. Oh, I missed a question here. Kevin Lopez, is it possible, realistic, for someone with zero knowledge to study for both A+ tests in a month's time? Yes. So you use the word possible, and I'm going to use, accept that in kind of the courtroom procedure. So you say it's possible that the person went to Mars and came back in a weekend. Yes, it's possible. Is it likely? It depends on you. So we do, myself and Scott and Mike and some other folks way back, we do these 2-week boot camps kind of things. And it's not really fair to call them a boot camp. It's a much different kind of thing with a group of folks who are type A personalities, real goal oriented, knock themselves out. So we'll do class with them for 9 hours a day for Monday through Friday the first week, Monday through Thursday the second week. And some of them come in with zero or very, very little experience. So we teach them what we got to teach them. They go back to their hotel rooms that night, and they will spend another 4 hours reading the book, covering everything, that we talked about. They're working it on the weekend in between, and we get a 95% first-time pass rate. So is it possible? Yes. You have to be dedicated. You've got to be willing, since Mike or I or Scott aren't there to explain it to you when you run into a tough spot, to go out online and research anything that you're not getting from the material that you're using, whether it be the book or the video or whatever. And I'm going to recommend, if you're going to try and knock all that out, use the 3 resources. Okay, use an online video course, ours preferably. Use a good book, ours definitely. Now you got 1,300 pages to get through in that month. and use practice tests. Okay, the whole value of a practice test is to help you identify what you know well and what you want to go back and brush up on. It's a big job. I applaud you for the effort. I hope you make it, and do, you know, kind of check in with us during these other MAs and let us know how it's going and if there's anything we can explain or help out with you. All right, hope that helps. Different forms of government IDs. Yes, that's Scott and Falak. Hello, Simon Edling. Good to see you. And Armando Perez. Hi. Brendan, does anyone know how long it takes for your actual certification to appear in your CompTIA account? Should be pretty quick. Should be a couple of days, and you should get a hard copy in give or take 6 weeks. Yeah, okay, totally. Yes, we certainly do clustering, and I will do a clustering project. It'll be fun. Namaste, Ankit. Very nice to see you. Hello, still one of the most fascinating things in IT. Yeah, sure. And so is everything that Dr. Stanger told us on Wednesday. Man, I was just agog and knocked out. I'm the same as you, Alice. A couple of us were talking about in-house. We followed along the words and we understood many of the words that he used, but sometimes not when they're used together in the way he did. So we're going to do the same thing you are. Watch that video over and over. Stop when we hit something we don't understand and go research it, because it was amazing and fascinating. OTP used for authentication. Session key issue after authentication. Authentication is already done. Mike Sec Plus book states session key is an example of OTP. Yeah, okay, so that one I'm kind of up to speed on. It's way beyond what we'll have the time to get into here. You see what, Falak, are you in any of the, oh no, tell you what, send me an email. Right, go ahead and post that, Scott. But send me an email with that same question, and I will send you a response back and some external information. But an OTP for everybody else is a one-time password. And that's very commonly done. In fact, I did an installation just a day or two ago where, well, we did that with with the Secure Shell product that I have on my phone. Every time I establish a connection with it, it issues me a one-time password, and I use that, and then it vanishes forever. So useful. So you can use that to establish a secure session long enough to pass a secure key, and then we use the key for the rest of the session. All right, so that's everybody's questions. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. Did I slide past my notes on that? Because I did want to tell you in advance. That's what we do. Yeah, I guess it's coming up. I made myself this little note. I got an email. Here's one more question, we'll call this. Over the last week or so, that says, asked, I'll paraphrase, how do I know how to do all these installs and things like that? And so I wanted to answer that one. As I said, I'm not a Linux guru. I'm okay, I'm functional, I learn more every day. I have been using it sparingly, dabblingly, for many years. I was using Unix 27 years ago, back when I was a Novell certified instructor, a CNI, certified Novell instructor, and we used to have a product that we taught on, so I had to get kind of functional in that. We used to set up a server with a bunch of serial ports and have serial lines running to computers all over classrooms. It was a real thing, and I kind of learned how to do that. Sorry, one-time pad. And I learned to do that by repeating what someone else taught me. And then eventually I became to understand it. So when the Raspberry Pi was first announced, February 2012, I read the specs, I looked at the announcement and said, gotta have one. This is a toy. And I kind of saw it from the electronics perspective of it. So I ordered it the day that I saw the information on it. I sent an email or whatever we were communicating with at the time to the folks in Total Seminars and say, hey, check this guy out. I'm ordering one. Everybody else should. And of course, the demand was huge worldwide, and they were serving demand in UK initially. So it took, I think, 6 weeks or 8 weeks for mine to come in. And, you know, I was kind of like the kid at the candy store waiting by the mailbox, and it finally came in. And so it was time to get a little more serious about learning Linux. But what I did was, just like I learned my original experience, and like most of us do, I saw it done, I saw somebody do something with it, and I just copied what they did. And invariably, those things don't work very well unless it's something really simple. Turn it on and run a command like ls. But when you start doing projects, they are missing instructions, they've got wrong instructions, and that requires that you go online and look for some more sources, and that's reading. And that's kind of how the learning process works for me, except for when I get into a formal class. So playing with pies for a few years, I got better and better and better at them, and the commands and the research continued. And at some point, I took some time and took a couple of online in-depth Linux courses. You know, it's the same way we all learn stuff. So you dabble in it for a little bit, you copy somebody else's activities, you learn a little bit about what happened there. And then if you're still interested, you get more and more information and pursue the educational aspects of it a little bit harder. So in fact, this is kind of cool. One of the first projects that I saw that I said, oh, this is practical for something that I do, was to take a Pi and use it like you would use a laptop to do a slideshow on. And I could use that then and carry that around instead of a laptop, plug that into a projector for places that I was doing presentations. And man, how cool is that, right? It's a lot less weight to carry around. And so the first set of instructions that I got on that, I worked them, and they worked, except there was something that they left out. And that was after the screen show was going on for a while, the screensaver would kick in. And so that launched another project. And to this day, got to tell you, there is not a built-in screensaver in the Raspberry Pi operating system. You have to install one, and then you have to turn it off. That's really weird. It's just, otherwise the thing will go black in short order. All right, so I've been playing with Pis and Linux with some seriousness for the last 12 years or so. And again, I'm still not that good. On the electronic side, I'm good. That's my formal education. I studied EE in physics as an undergrad. And so I know the fundamentals. I know how to do resistors and transistors and all that good stuff. But you know, it was in the 80s when I was in college, and I haven't been an electrical engineer in 40 years. So as I started interfacing with the various interfaces that you find on a Raspberry Pi, there was a lot that I had to learn. And one of the things that I got to learn and was a lot of fun, is how to use programming like Python or interfaces to Python to control these inputs and outputs. So I can use them to run relays and ring bells and read sensors and check the temperature and humidity and do signs and LEDs and all kinds of goodies like that. So let's say that I have an unfair advantage there. But as we get into the hardware projects and we start installing that stuff, first of all, I'm going to show you how to do it. If you do what I show you how to do in the order that I show you how to do it, you don't have to know electronics. If you know a little bit, that'll help. And if you don't know anything and you follow what I do and you're curious, then that's a good reason for you or the people that you gifted this to go do a little bit of research. All right, last questions on catching up. Just a few have popped up here, and then we can start talking about what we're going to talk about. Can you run folding at home on a Pi? There are folks who claim to have done it, but you never see any tutorials online on how they did it. And if you go to the raspberrypi.org/forums section and you look for folding at home, there is a holy war. People who say you can, people who say you can't. And then there's the people who attack the people who say you can, claiming that whatever method they're using makes your Pi and potentially your whole home or business environment vulnerable. And so they warn against doing it because it wasn't designed. I saw not long ago a conversation where it was being specifically ported to Pi, but I don't know if it's being done by the Folding at Home group or by some third party. So my best advice to you, I don't fold at home. I haven't done that. Just read a little bit about it. So go check out the raspberrypi.org forums and look up folding and see what you can get there. I don't see support for, yeah, folding, right. Scott didn't see it either. But again, there are claims that it's been done. Maybe they did it with, I never pronounced this correctly. I don't know, I've never heard it pronounced, but QEMU, Q-E-M-U, which is an x86 emulator that runs on a Pi. All right, let's get into the meat of this thing. Quick review, what we did last week. So in our last drama, we finished looking at the command line interface commands that are needed in the FTP client. And you don't need any of that for CompTIA. Why did I spend so much time on it? Two reasons. One, it's useful and practical in real world. Two, it was on the last iteration of either A+ or Net+, maybe a little bit of both. And that means when you carry in your A+ and you meet somebody else and they start speaking that, I wanted you to be able to participate in that conversation so they don't have to do the, well, back in my day, we had to learn command lines in FTP. Yeah, I had to learn that too. It's kind of like the people who talk about how they learn to ride bicycles in grass and gravel uphill both ways. So now you can ride your bike in grass. So we do FTP commands like put and get and mput and mget and open and bind and some others. We looked at the SCP command, a great command that allows you to securely transfer data back and forth between a host that's running an SSH server. That's a cool thing. And once you use it and you find a value for yourself, man, it's got magic to it. The big topic for last week was the boring one. And that was to look at the standard Linux directory structure. I know you're not going to remember everything we went to. I don't remember it all. I have notes. But you've been exposed to it now. When you go messing around in a Linux environment, be it Raspberry Pi OS or Ubuntu or whatever, Mint, whatever other Linux flavor makes you happy, you're going to see most of that stuff. And at least hopefully in the back of your mind, beg your pardon, you'll say, oh yeah, Dave talked about that. The USR folder used to be for home folders like user, but now it's a general purpose. And then we spent a little time navigating the file system. We talked about the tree command, which some versions of Linux you've got to install, sudo apt install tree, and some it's already there. We used the three big navigation commands. You're going to use and live with these things all your life in a Linux environment. So we got the CD command to move around, change directories. We have the PWD command. We're going to hit him again as a compare and contrast with another command. That's the print working directory or present working directory. It shows you what directory you're working in right now. And the ls command, mentioned one or two of the switches. Ls is list or list stuff. That shows you the contents of your current directory, or if you put a path after ls, wherever you ask for. Today's topics. So I ran out of time last week, and there was one thing that I wanted to do. It's a super fun lab, and it was a WireShark lab. So I'm going to get on that right quick. We're going to, we did 2 weeks ago a WireShark lab with FTP, where we looked at a couple of things about it. One, we saw that it was a TCP connection. So we saw the three-way TCP handshake for those in Net+. That's an important thing to know and remember. We have the ACK, the ACK, the SYN-ACK, other way around, SYN-ACK, ACK. There we go. So we got to see the TCP process. And then this question comes up to Mike all the time. How do I memorize these ports? And Mike's answer is always use them, practice them, see them in use. And so that's what we did with WireShark. We checked what we have to memorize for CompTIA in all three of the trifecta classes. They all want to know ports and protocols, and there are some that cross over to all three. FTP is one of them. So FTP, uses two TCP ports. You don't have to know that they're TCP. Port 20, hope some of you have already got that answer in your head, and port 21. So we saw that in WireShark. We also saw something important about FTP and WireShark, and that is it's unsecure. It's not insecure. It's not nervous and terrified and socially inept. It's unsecure, and unsecure means encrypted. So it's clear text. If somebody captures an FTP session that you're conducting in some way, I'll show you some ways in other classes or other presentations. This isn't a class. Then they could see and capture everything that you're moving back and forth. One of the things that I didn't get to do last week, I tried to, and it blew up, and I checked. yes, FTP decidedly needs a therapist. It's insecure. I did a command and it blew up, and I was shocked because I run that command all the time. And why did it blow up? So let me show you something here ever so quick. Let me do some screen sharing. So this is the latest operating system. Good, that looks pretty good. On full screen, I'll make sure I zoom things out as we do what we're going to do here. The Raspberry Pi that I did shiny and new a couple weeks ago was actually not shiny and new. I cleaned up an old one and made it look shiny and new. But you can see there's a little different background on this one than that gray putty background. They used to call that thing Pixel. And there's a reason for it. It was not the most current version of Raspberry Pi OS. In fact, it was a version of Raspbian. And worse than that, it was 2 generations old. So I pulled that card out the other day and smoked it and did a fresh, shiny, new current version of Raspberry Pi OS. Works the same. Most of the commands are the same. And so let me get this thing kind of blown up. I think I got big fonts on here for us to see. Okay, it's very tiny on the screen. I'll do what I can about that. You know what, let's just go full screen this thing. Oh, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to experiment with, good Lord, don't do that. There's 2 pull downs at the top of my screen and they're fighting with each other. All right, so I'm going to change the scaling on this thing to 125%. And I'm just going to put some text in here. See if I can change the, I looked at this last night, if I could change the font size in here. We didn't know how this was going to work out because it's a new install and it's got all kinds of new goodies. Display, there's no font size in here. Advanced, select characters, disable, disable, disable. I know something shortcuts. All right, even if you don't get to see it, I'll be able to show you what I need you to see and describe it. Okay. Edit, preferences, style. Oh, terminal font. It gives me the font type, but not the size. We can at least make it bold, huh? Oh, here's the size. I see. Okay. Now you're telling me, Scott. Thank you. So let's make that guy about 24. And select it and close out of here. Did I miss something? Sure looks like I did. I didn't save it. Hang on, let me do this. Sorry, it's not like I haven't practiced this, but this one was different and special. Come on. There you go. Okay, let's get this back down. Now I can get back to the scaling. I'm going to change the scaling again. And then one more round to go and adjust the font size. I know, bear with me. Edit, preferences. Monospace regular, we make it bold. We change it to 24, which is probably gonna be way too big. Select that, okay it. Hey, look at that. All right, so some stuff's gonna run off the screen, I'm pretty sure. So to make a user account, I wanna do this. We're in the home folder. I do an ls. The only user that has home folders is Pi. I'm going to go back into there. I'm just going to use the cd command, clear the screen, and do an ls. So here I am in whack home, whack Pi, and there's my personal stuff. Now, if I try to create a user, sudo minus, add user. Got to do this minus M. That means make the home folder, and then we give them a name. This is what I did last week, and it says, you blew it, man. This is how you're supposed to use it. Well, there's a reason for that. It only works if you're in the top of the file structure, in the root. So I do a pwd here. I'm in the root. You can see that over in the left-hand corner. So I'm going to run that same sudo. Now let's do this, just to refresh everybody. By doing ls on the home folder, there's only one folder in there. It's Pi. So I'm going to sudo add user minus M Fred. Ah, I hate you. I made about 45 users last night. Yes, that's because it's not add user, it's user add. It's funny. There's a couple commands that work backward and forward like that. And I was playing with a whole bunch of them. So I got these confused. Okay, sudo user add minus M, make a home directory. His name is Fred. No error messages. It happened. And I know that because I can either ls whack home, or I can cd into the home folder. It's below me, so I don't need a slash. There they are again. So let's go into Fred's home folder and let's see what he got. Nothing. So when you create a user, by default, he doesn't get any special folders. And that default exists because there is a user creation configuration file. We could go into that thing and edit it and say, every time I add a user, make these folders, give them these permissions, and so forth. So there's how to make a user. Got to use sudo. You got to have an account that's part of the sudo group, so it's got powers, and then we use the user add command. The next thing you want to do once you create a user, this doesn't matter where you are, is the password command. And so we're going to say sudo because I'm going to change somebody else's password. If I'm changing my own password, I can just type in the password command. And I'm going to say sudo password, and then the name of the person that I want to assign or change a password to, Fred. And we can't, follow up with his password on this line because Linux doesn't want somebody looking over our shoulder to do that. So he's going to prompt me twice for a password. And when I type it in, we're not going to see anything happen. The cursor's not going to move. There's no asterisks. So I'm going to give him the usual password, not safe, but it's just for a demo. So RASPBERRY, enter. Do it again, RASPBERRY. Now, if I typoed that when I hit the enter key, it's going to say password not changed. But I didn't get an error message, password updated successfully. So Fred now has a password. So this is a specific thing that we got to know, not the syntax. You got to know what the command is and what it does. And they specifically have in the objectives that you need to know the difference between the PWD command and the PASSWD command. PWD, present working directory, password changes user passwords. One last thing to do while I'm here, and then I'll come back to screen. Fred has left the organization. I've checked and have any files of his that I want, so I can get rid of that. Whoops, what are you doing there? Okay, I see what you're doing there. And there's a couple ways to do this. I can say sudo del user and then the account name, and the account would go away and his home folder structure would stay. So that might be useful if there's data in there that we need after Fred is gone because it's important to use for the company, or maybe we fired him because he was saving files that he shouldn't save in there, and that needs to be preserved for evidence or whatever. But I want to get rid of his home directory. This one is done with a double dash. And we're going to do remove dash home, and then the name of the account, Fred. This, like the creation of a user, only works when you're in the root directory. So if you try to do this any other folder, any other directory, not going to happen. So we ls to the home folder, and there, Fred no longer has a home directory, just good old pie. So that was something that got choked when I was doing a presentation last week. Sorry about that. I wanted you to see it. Creating users, user add and del user are not mandatory commands for CompTIA, but it was really important, I think, that you know, because you got to make user accounts. Okay, next thing I want to do is just something fun that again applies to a number of the the plus courses. We're going to do a little WireShark demo here. And what I want to do, first of all, is we've got an SSH server on here. It was built into Raspberry Pi OS, and all we had to do was go into our preferences and enable it. Done. And with that, we can establish a remote terminal session, and it's SSH secure shell, so it's secure, it's encrypted. Before SSH existed, there was another kind of terminal program called telnet. It looks and acts a lot like SSH, but it's different. Now you got to know for Net Plus and for A Plus, the SSH and the telnet port numbers. So should I ask you to type them in? Nah, we already know this. SSH is 22, telnet's 23. So I'm going to install a telnet server. It's really quick. I'm going to do sudo apt install telnet d. D because it's a daemon, it's a server process. Oops, you're not watching that. You're just watching my face. Watch this, huh? That's all right. This happens so fast. By the time I get you to screen share it, you're not going to get to see anything. So let me do something else. Now, once you do telnet, there is one other command that you have to run after this. And I'm going to copy and paste it and show it to you. Many times when you install a new server or service, it works as soon as it's installed. But some of them need to be launched. And the way to launch them, there's two of them. One of them is to initialize them with a daemon or process or system launcher, and the other is to reboot the Pi, which I'm not going to do. It's 94% done, so I'm getting ready to head over into sharing the rest of it. Share screen, this one. And it finished. So let's see if I can scroll back up here. All that happened in the course of about a minute and a half or so, maybe less than that. So there's a telnet server on there, but this particular one doesn't auto start after installation. So what I'm going to do is restart it. There's all kinds of different ways to restart the service. This is the friendliest one for this one. Oops. Forgot to start. Not found? Are you serious? Man, I hate working late night and gagging something in it. The OpenBSD is Let me check my notes here real quick, see what I blew. Sudo etc initd OpenBSD initd. Oh, that was for initd. Never mind. Okay, this one started. It was a different terminal emulator. So we should be working now. So what I'm going to do on the Pi is close out of here. And I'm going to install WireShark. Am I going to install WireShark? No, I'm going to do it over on the other server. It's more fun that way. We're going to install WireShark on this one later today. That'll be more fun. So let me get the other Pi going because it's got WireShark in it already. Yeah, come on. There you go. Okay, now we share it. All right, so here's an older version of Raspberry Pi OS. Let's go find out what his IP address is, just to remember for sure. Come on, you. Oh, it changed. I did a lot of reinstalls this week. So we got a 112 and a 137. We'll use 137. Internet, WireShark. Okay, I got traffic coming up. A little bit different on the wireless LAN than the Ethernet LAN. So I'm going to capture from everything. And WireShark is capturing now. And this thing is doing VNC. It's kind of a cool thing. You can say, I don't want to see the VNC traffic. And now I cleared off all that junk. All right, let me go share something else with you. Stop sharing this. That's still capturing in the background. Now we're going to fire up a terminal session with it. I'm going to use everybody's favorite old terminal program, PuTTY. I'll share it with you for just a moment. So PuTTY's a free download. If you don't have PuTTY, and you don't have Raspberry Pis, get it. It's really useful for a whole bunch of different worlds. Now, once this thing establishes connection, it's going to break, and we have to go to the PuTTY session. But so this thing gives me a choice of doing a raw connection. That's something I would do with a wire. I can do a telnet connection. And look at that. When I select telnet, it automatically fills in port 23. I can do a remote login. We'll do that in another life. I can do a secure shell on port 22. I can do a serial port connection. That doesn't use a port, that uses speeds. but we'll do a telnet session here. Put in the IP address 192.168.1.137, I think I said. Okay, so the share broke, which is fine. I'll go share the other session with you. Okay, so here's my PuTTY login screen. If it's small and tiny, don't sweat it. I'll talk you through it here. So he's prompting me for a login. I type in pi. This looks exactly like the SSH session that we did last week, right? Prompted me for a password. I'll do RASPBERRY. I'm in. Do a couple of commands to look around. I'll do ls, cd ftp, cd files, ls. And let's look at the contents of one of these files with the cat command. Remember that you concatenate, it's short for, but it looks at the contents of a file. So we'll cat demo file .text. There's the contents of the file, and we'll close this session with the exit command. Okay, that was a telnet session. Telnet uses port 23. So now let's head back over to WireShark. And he's still capturing away, happy as a clam. So we stop the capture, get rid of this visible filter, and let's say something like TCP. Looks like I've already done this. I have. So I'll select this TCP dot port equals 23. Enter. And here is the telnet session that he captured. Let's move that a little bit so I can see that better. There we go. So it first starts with, it's a TCP connection, a SYN, a SYN-ACK, and an ACK. It came from the initial contact, my machine, 1.117, to this computer, 1.137. Now, once we've started the session, it says telnet data. So I'm going to double click that guy and open that up here. And down at the bottom, this is the actual frame that was captured that's being analyzed here. And if I click this guy, it shows me the bits and bytes involved. I don't know what that cook, there we go, the cook capture. If I expand this thing, I can see every chunk of the frame that's happening in here. We look in the IP, and this is where it starts to get interesting. I'll do a WireShark tear apart class, kind of like Mike did in another way. I'm going to show you some different things that he didn't get to. 52, it's identification. That's my ephemeral port. Time to live, it's allowed to go through 60 routers. But here is the one I really want. In the TCP header, it says this is to port 23 from ephemeral port 64017. Let's get out of that guy. Oh, wait, I want to see one more thing on that. Let's go back into there. The payload was a telnet payload. And this is where negotiation happened between the server and the client. What kind of terminal type are you? What is your terminal speed? Things like that. So these are questions that I don't know who's asking this one, who. The server should be asking the client on this one. If we go down further here, we will find a packet or a frame that's got the login name. So let's do a right click and follow stream here. So there is the whole thing. Look at this. what we just learned here, we learned and remembered and were reminded at least that telnet uses port 23. We know from this thing that it's unsecure. Every single chunk of information that I did and saw is unencrypted. So check this guy out. This one's really cool. This is called echoplexing. When I typed in my login name, I type in the letter P, it goes from my computer to the telnet server. And then it echoed it back. So here's my P going outbound, and here's the P coming back, and that's why P was displayed on my screen. Not because I typed it in and it went from my program to my screen, but I typed it in, it went to the server, and the server echoed it back. Same thing happened with the I. And then when he prompted me for password, it doesn't even encrypt the password. It's Raspberry. Holy Hannah. So that's what I want to demonstrate with this little demo. Port 23, it's a TCP process, and it's completely unencrypted. It's unsecure. All right, we're going to start a fresh capture here, and then we're going to establish an SSH session with it. So start capturing, continue without saving. Yes, please. Now we did an SSH the other day, but this time we're doing it to compare. We'll stop streaming, fire up PuTTY, and I'll share it. Okay, so this time we got SSH selected instead of telnet. There's port 22, put in the IP address, 137. Okay, that got broke, that's all right. Now we share this. Okay, so here's my SSH connection. I'm going to do the same identical process. I'm going to log in as Pi. Going to prompt me for the password, putting in Raspberry. Let's do an LS, see where I'm at. I'll do a PWD. I'll CD into the FTP folder, CD into the files folder, list what's in there. Let's cat the demo file again. And remember, this is old oh wait, this is SSH. I can exit out of it. FTP, I would have to do the buy. Exit. Okay, that breaks the share. That's cool. Now we'll share up again over on WireShark. And there we go. Stop the capture. And we'll filter on TCP port. Let's see, I'll pick this 23 and then just edit it to be 22. So here's our SSH connection. Same kind of start, SYN, ACK, protocol negotiation. And look at that, we did a key exchange here. Because we're doing encryption, we've got to do a key exchange. And check that out, you Net Plus people and you, more important, other folks, Security Plus people. There's the Diffie-Hellman exchange. So we started out with a simple key exchange just so we could start Diffie-Hellman. Then we did the Diffie-Hellman exchange process and exchanged the public keys that were generated during Diffie-Hellman. And after that, everything is encrypted. Also, some of this was encrypted because of this key exchange here. So started the same way from my 1.117 client to the server 137 server. And slick, huh? Let's follow the stream. We'll start here with the top half. Follow, stream. So a little bit of this, the beginning parts where they have to do some initial communication is unencrypted. It's okay if somebody grabs this stuff. We don't care. That's not going to hurt us. They can't use it. And check out what happened here. This is something Mike talked about with EAP. when two devices that can do encryption start talking to each other, they talk about what kinds of encryption they can do. So this guy says, well, I can do Diffie-Hellman SHA-1, Group 14 SHA-1, RSA, SSH, DSS. I saw there's Blowfish in there. So one of these guys said, here's what I can do. And the other guy said, okay, here's what I can do. And then the two get together and they pick the best one, the most secure one that they both can do. They pick a Diffie-Hellman here, of course. And then we see a little bit of the Diffie-Hellman process start to happen. We see there's an HMAC, a hash-based exchange. And then once the keys are all exchanged, they said, okay, let's start encrypting. So that all happened before I ever even got prompted for my account name or password. So somewhere in here, it says, what's your login name? And somewhere in here, it says Pi. And somewhere in here, it said, what's your password? And it's Raspberry. And there's my CDing through the various folders. And somewhere in there is looking at that demo file.txt. So that's what we're talking about here. Telnet is a terminal emulation program that uses port 23 and is unsecure. And so we got to come back to that question. Why does it exist then? And then we've got SSH, looks and acts the same to the user, different port 22. Let's unshare this. We don't need to set more. Oh, let's close it. Control Q. I remember. Okay, now we'll unshare. So Secure Shell uses port 22, and other services can use Secure Shell's port 22. And obviously it's secure. So Telnet existed as the first, or one of the first terminal emulation programs. Telnet, terminal emulator for the network. And back then, security wasn't a big deal. It was experimental. I'm going to log into a server or send a message or do whatever. And they started even building that into embedded operating systems that are embedded into devices that you can manage. For instance, a router or a managed switch. They may have a serial port or an R port or whatever, a service port, or maybe you just go through it through its regular switch port, something like that. And you can enable Telnet still on many of those. But again, we tend to lean on the safer side of things and enable or accept the fact that the SSH server is enabled. So it doesn't have a lot of real world practical stuff if it's used in an environment where there's any chance of the information being captured. But you got to know it for CompTIA. And it's fun to play with, especially when you're doing stuff like this WireSharky stuff. All right, top left had the spacing. Okay, good. If you go on a forum and talk about using Telnet, they will just beat you to death. People just automatically assume the worst. But, you know, if you feel the need to explain it, I'm teaching the differences. Oh, that's a good thing to do. All right, FTP is not secure. We covered that last week. A couple of sessions from now, we'll do secure FTP and some other secure stuff. Okay, zooming down through my many pages. That's a good thing. Let me slide this. There we go. So what I want to do now is to go check the feed, see what kind of cool questions have popped up. Wow, Scott's doing a lot of talking. Okay, I'm rolling back up to catch on some stuff. The last thing that I did was Falak's response with following up on some answers he got about OTP. Oh, in your former career, OTP was time pad. Okay. Are there any pros and cons to learning Linux on a VM as opposed to learning on a Raspberry Pi? Glad you asked that. I actually have notes about here to deal with this. And the answer is no. If you don't want to go out and buy a Raspberry Pi, but you want to learn Linux, and if you want to do everything that I'm doing here, set up a virtual machine and run it with Ubuntu. 99.75% of everything that I show you here is going to work in almost the identical steps in Ubuntu as it does on Raspbian OS. So you guys know I love this stuff, and we're turning this into a Raspberry Pi project. But by all means, if you just want to learn this stuff or practice it or don't want to buy a Pi for some reason, so either set one up in a virtual machine or get some old junk machine from Goodwill that's got 2 gigs of RAM and a crappy old processor, and you can install a dedicated copy of Ubuntu on there. 2 gigs is like the bare bones suicidal minimum, and I'd be thinking 4 or 8 would be better. But yes, do this on any machine with most any version of Linux. Dave, what Pi should we get to follow along with upcoming projects? Are there any that are better? Yes, there are any that are better. Obviously, the newest, greatest, latest 8 gig Raspberry Pi 4B Plus is better. Every lab that I'm showing you, I'm doing on a 3B Plus so far for the last 3 sessions. I like it because power supplies are more common for it. You don't get power supplies cheaply for the Raspberry Pi 4s because they have the USB-C connector. The Raspberry Pis 3s and everything prior to that has USB micro connectors, micro USBs. So that's fine. They got plenty of memory for pretty much everything that I'm going to do. So yeah, get yourself a 3B, something like that, a 3B plus. You can buy them new for 25 bucks. You got to spend a couple bucks on a case and a power supply. Power supply's got to do 2.4 amps, 2.5 amps or better. If you want to say newest, latest, and greatest, I will get into doing some stuff on Raspberry 4s later because they have some things that the 3s don't have, like dual monitors, like support for the 64-bit operating system, and some things like that. But again, all this stuff works. And I didn't identify that. That was from Transplant Health. Hi, Transplant. Haven't seen you in a while. All right, with your insecures and your unsecures. Hanging ports. I was going to rename the port a Chad, so it'd be a hanging Chad. Tullowitz, Scott German brings new meaning to any port in a storm. I'm going to hang myself with all this punditry. Yes, Scott too. Okay, good. We got a better size working out. Linux terminal is totally unforgiving. Right. So everything that we do when you're in these terminal environments, remember, it's Linux. It's case sensitive. So upper lowercase things and typos and what and where you do things matters sometimes. IDE-like interface terminal, no. This is a 2-person session between Tullowit and Scott. Let's need some more questions, need some more folks doing some input. Yeah, I too. Why do we have to explain telnet? Because it's in the objectives. What was that? Who rocks? Oh, WireShark rocks. Yes, it does. And that's our other really fun project today. We're going to install WireShark. That's why I didn't do it a moment ago, so I could show you the process. It happens quick. Brandon likes SSH. Good, me too. Scott, you don't remember toddlers. Right, David. They were inventing the internet in the late 60s, early 70s, and security wasn't necessary because it was kind of in-house, experimental. It existed for a particular purpose. It was kind of developed on contract with 3 different types of agencies and organizations, including the military. And so in the beginning, it was, let's make it work. Then once it was working, they discovered, you know what, there's a reason for security. This is becoming a little broader than we envisioned it's going to be. And so protocols morphed and changed, the security got built in. Tulawit, what is the legality? I am not an attorney and I don't play one on television, of building, say, a wireless signal detector with a custom enclosure and mini screen out of a Pi and selling it on the market. Look, we have talked about capturing signals in the past, and the general consensus, and I went online to do a little bit of lookup. First of all, I'm only speaking from my limited knowledge of information in the US. So those of you abroad, you're on your own. It appears to be okay to capture. It does, if you use the information. Somebody said maliciously, any use of it by definition is malicious. You're using information that you are not intended to have. So that becomes illegal. Whether you want to sell it on the market, I have never seen anything that's not totally true. I have seen plenty of data scanners out there in the world. I might even own one. If I reached in my handy dandy little box here, I could bring out something pretty cool. I don't know, man. Ask an attorney. That's I live on the paranoid side of the law, and you know, Mike and Scott and I, we deal face to face with a number of three-letter federal agencies whose people carry guns, and we have to keep clean noses just to be able to continue to work there. And I love working for those folks. They are great and wonderful people. So you won't find me doing anything like that. And I don't recommend that for anybody else. When does Scott Jernigan not? I see. Okay. Brendan, you can't blame Scott. Yes. David, reasons why telnet may be relatively secure. If it's not being used over a network, sure. Right. So I'm using that on a network that's not accessible to the outside world. So my computer here, my Raspberry Pi over there, that doesn't make it secure. It just makes it obscured. And what's your other thing? If it's not being used over network with switches, if everybody has their own collision domain, only, I'm not going to take that one at face value, David. In switches where the host and client, or where the client and server are on their own VLAN, and you're not doing inter-VLAN trunking. So that's got some validity to it. Moving down questions, Tulowit's talking to Brandon. Can we talk about Docker yet? I don't have anything prepared on Docker. Mike wants to do a Docker presentation. I've got some slides made up for it. No, don't say just kidding, buddy. I got a Docker presentation in mind. Docker is, those who don't know, it's a container system that allows you to take and package an application with all of the support files and things that the operating system needs. You got the operating system, you've got a container manager program, the Docker manager, and then you have these containers that are portable. So I can write some really sophisticated app, containerize it in a Docker container, and copy that Docker container onto any computer that runs Docker, and it will take advantage of the native operating system, and the Docker system will interface. Now, it's kind of like a virtual machine, but it's not, very different. There are contests out there in Pi world. How many simultaneous Docker containers can you get running? And back before the 4 came out with its 2 gig and its 4 gig models, I saw counts running over 400. They were simple containers, not sophisticated, but I'm working on a project that seems to only come in Docker packages. And I was just going to start screwing around with it this week, and then I ran into a techno glitch 2 nights ago prepping for this, and it fell by the wayside. But when that happens, I'm going to bring you in on it. DA Carl, it looks like my motherboard has 4 slots for RAM up to 64 gigs. 16 gigs a piece. Those are tough to find, but it's not impossible. However, only 2 slots have RAM clips. So let's call them RAM modules. Do RAM modules come with a RAM upgrade, or do I have 2? The right answer to that, follow the straight and narrow is check your manual. But if there's 4 slots and you've only got 2 of them populated, you should be able to populate the other 2 slots. You've got to get the right kind of RAM. Again, check your manual, check the manufacturer support type site for what kind of RAM you need. Excuse me. And 16 gig modules, those are unusual for personal computers. They tend to be found for servers. They tend to be buffered or support ECC, but I don't know your motherboard. It may very well be consumer oriented. But short answer, check your manual. And if and when you get that thing up and running 64 gigs, check in with us. I love that idea. I want to hear how many VMs you have running at once. Follow it. My broader question is, can you build useful stuff out of a Pi and then sell it as a pre-built service? Absolutely. Here again, I'm going to send you over to the raspberrypi.org. Go into the forums, go into the wanted, and go into the for sale. People make Pi products all the time. NEC monitors have built-in Pi Zeros. I think I popped one out the other day. Do I have one out in the open? There's one. There's a Pi Zero built in. Yeah, that one's in a case. I'm not going to rip that out. Pi's. Oh, there's one. Hey, look at that. So this little guy is running various features of NEC monitors. And there are just trillions of legitimate commercial and hobbyist Pi products that are sold on the open marketplace. Let me tell you about one that I can't bring myself to buy right now, but you'll find these on eBay all the time. There's a couple of guys out of the Netherlands who create a Pi with an add-on thing, and then they sell it as an integrated unit. It's called a DMX controller. It's used for controlling intelligent lighting. It's a hobby and application of mine. And I use, big boxes and computers to do that. And I have been looking forward to doing it with a Pi. There's an application out there that I already know, and it's very common, used in Linux and Windows machines to do it. So yes, by all means, make a device and sell it. Brandon, you're twisted. I do remember that. Could have used Docker info today when I spun up a VM running Photon OS. Nice, Brandon. Sweet. Let's see. And DA forgot to mention that it's a pre-built from Lenovo, specifically the 50. Okay, I don't know Lenovo model, so I will nod in agreement. Yes, purchased as a single 16, unbuffered, dual rank. I'm going to assume that that means dual channel, which makes sense. Yes, Andre, good to see you, buddy. Okay, moving on. So I'm going to run through kind of a list of commands and demo a few of them. Let me show you something on here. Let's go over to this thing. And I'm just going to live off of this page here. I'll stick my head in now and again so it doesn't get too boring. And I'll make this as quick as I humanly can. Super bundle. Okay, that's over on this page. The only CompTIA class that we mess around with in these sessions that needs basic Linux command is A+. In fact, specifically, it's in the 1002 class, 220.1002, Objective 1.9. They're gonna give you scenarios and say, what would be the right command to use in this scenario to identify the problem or solve the problem or accomplish a task or whatever. And so here is the complete list of them. And some of these we've already gone through. Some of them I'm going to hit very lightly and some of them just a little more heavily. So we've beaten to death LS, list. That's how we display whatever is in our file system, folders, files, permissions, last time it was touched, used, updated, sort them, things like that. Then we got grep. Man, grep is a cool command, and we should experiment with that for a second. It stands for globally search for regular expressions and print matching. Ugh, that's an old 70s techno garb term that means look for something in a file or in some kind of output, find it, and then display. That's what they mean when they say print what you found on the screen. So let me do 2 quickies on what you can do with grep. It can be used as a standalone command, and it can be used to take the output from another command and generate some results. So let's say I'm sharing. I got a terminal going on, cd ftp, ls, nothing in there, files. Okay. So I got a couple of files in here. I don't know their contents. I don't have them memorized, so I'm just going to cat one real quick. Cat demo file dot text. Okay. This one will be kind of interesting. So I'm going to grep this thing. I'm going to grep the file name, demo file dot text, and I'm going to tell it to look for any instances of the term FTP. Other way around. Did I typo that? So what it shows you is every line of the file that has that. So there's no hard return on this line. It's just, it looks like 2 lines when I copy it out. But if there was 500 lines in this file, and these were the only ones that had the string FTP in them, it would just post that 1 line. Grep is really fast. So you could do this with a multi-megabyte file and it will go and spit out the lines that you want. So that's one way to use grep. Another way, let me see if I can invent one. Oh, here, oh, this is cool. Let me do a quick IP ifconfig. Okay, so I picked a search word out of here, clear. So I'm going to say ifconfig, but instead of sending the output to the screen, I'm going to use the pipe symbol, and I'm going to pipe it through grep, and I want grep to tell me any and all instances of inet. So there was a lot of lines in the ifconfig output, but by running it through grep and saying, just show me the lines that have inet, there we go. So it's a great little search utility. Now, it seems like Windows probably has something better, stronger, faster. There might be a third-party utility that's better, stronger, faster. Here's where it becomes really useful, powerful, and practical. Okay, I got this thing. Really, I do. There it is. Okay, so here is a Pi product. It's not a Raspberry Pi. This one's an Orange Pi, but this works on Raspberry Pi as well. And you can see I've got a little add-on box here. It's an LED display. And a gent that I know wrote a program that runs a grep and pulls out the IP address of this box. And then he uses another filter and runs it through some code so that the IP address cycles through here. It shows 198 for 2 seconds. Dot 192, pause, 168, pause, 1, pause, 117. So there is no single easy command to go get the IP address, or maybe there is, but he said, I'm just going to use the easy way. I know that the IP address lives on these lines. I'm just going to grep it and then pass that on to my program for display on there. So grep, cool, useful, powerful. How are we doing here? It's 24 after. Good. We're going to make it all. This is going to be, like I said, I'm going to move quickly through these things, about another 10 minutes or so on these commands. We've covered CD very well. So change directory, you can cd ... to go up one, cd / to go to the root, cd without any parameters. In most modern versions of Linux, that'll take you to your home folder. Then the shutdown command. Shutdown turns off the operating system, right? Well, there's two kinds of shutdowns. One is shutdown. It closes the files, it closes any programs, and stops the OS. There is another program called halt or halt sys. It's a little different and it's not required by CompTIA, but I want you to know because there's, with every one of these commands, switches. Command space minus this, minus that, double minus this. So shutdown has switches. A couple of them are really cool. If we add to the shutdown command -R, after it completes the shutdown, it will, I don't want you to just keep staring at this. I want to talk because I didn't put switches on that. It will reboot. If you do a -H, it does halt sys. Halt sys is the software equivalent of pulling the plug. So applications don't get closed, programs, files don't get closed. It just shuts down. And then one of my really favorite ones, try this. Any Linux system makes you happy. Type in shutdown space -K. Whenever you do a shutdown, all users logged into your system will receive a message. We are about to shut down, and you can specify a T parameter, time, or a specific time of day, time in seconds or time of day. And they'll get a message. Hey, we're going to shut down in 50 seconds. We're going to shut down at 3:05 p.m. or 15:03. But this one's super cool. Do add -K to anything you do, and it won't shut down. It's a fake. It's a lie. So it's a way of getting everybody to log off by sending them shutdown -K. Attention, we are shutting down. Better log off. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a different share with you. This is kind of cool. Let's kill this. I'm going to take you to my notes and outlines and let you see how horrible they are. But this way you can see some of the switches. Yeah, whether it's halt or halt sys varies by different versions of Linux. Old versions of SCO had halt sys. Current ones mostly have halt. Okay, so this is my word notes that I'm running for. There was my shutdown and my things. And I put this up here because if anybody goes and reviews this on the archive version, you'll be able to see this and take longer notes and pause it and things like that. So we talked about present working directory versus password and things, just interesting things that I wanted you to know. When we use that password command to set a password for Fred, and we set it as Raspberry, there is no file, the password file, in fact, that's got a content that says Fred's password is Raspberry. Raspberry gets hashed using whichever hashing routine that Raspberry Pi OS uses these days, and the hash of that is saved. When you create a password for somebody, you can lock their password so they can't log in. If they're logged in, they'll stay logged in until they log out, but next time they log in, their password won't work. You can force them to not change passwords with the -N. -N7 says if they've changed their own password, they can't change it again for 7 days. And this one's really kind of cool, -S. So you'd say password -S Fred, and that will show you 7 little factoids about his account and password. So his login name, is whether or not it's locked or no password, when it was last changed, minimum and maximum password ages that you've set for allowed. You can set it up so that when we set a password, they get a warning when it's going to expire. We'll know how long it's been since they've used that. And there's other aspects with password. Just marching through that list. Wish they were alphabetical because we'd be on the M's already. MV, the move command. It's exactly what it sounds like. Microsoft has a move command. They are generally similar. You move and specify a source path and file, and then a destination path and file. Scott's kind of fallen down on the job and didn't edit my paw. Way to go, man. CP is how we copy source path and destination path. Easy for me to say. You want to get rid of a file? RM, remove. You can remove file or files. If you add -R and you use wildcards or something, it will remove files from the current directory on down. That's recursively. And if there are files that you can't delete because they're locked open, we add -F for force it. So if you ever put those two together, you are doing something really dangerous. Let me come to head here. So I think this was 2 years ago. There was a thing running around the internet that started from one of the forums where there are Linux operators and system admins and things like that, about a guy who had supposedly gone to a high-level directory, maybe even the root, and run with his supervisor privileges RM -R-F. And that would, of course, take out every single file in the entire system. I think it turns out later that was a hoax. Somebody reported it as a what if, or no, I didn't really do it, but I may be mistaken. It's a really interesting Google search either way. So it might be something really, really, really insanely dangerous to do. Back in the days of DOS, we all had that experience of running del ***/s, same thing, and completely cooking a file system. All right, so I'm only going to touch chmod. I'm going to do a specific lesson on chmod next week, but it stands for change mode, and it's a method for granting or denying permissions to a file or a directory. If I run an ls-l against a file or a folder, I'm going to see on a file some or all of these letters, RWX, RWX, RWX. And if you do it on a directory, they add one more entry to it, D for directory. Each of these stands for read, write, and execute. If you write a script, it's a bash script, that's a text file, you can't run it until it's marked with the X attribute. We'll call it an attribute for now. The X permission, if you like. Now, when you create a user, two things actually get created. One is the user account, and one is a group object with the same name as that user account. And whenever a user account creates a file or a directory, they become the owner of the file, and their personal group becomes an owner of the file. So whenever a file or folder gets a permission, the first three permissions are for the user who created it. The next three are for the group that the user is a member of. And the final three is for everyone else. And we use chmod to adjust these settings. Now, they can be done with letters. They can also be done hexadecimally. Each of these letters can be represented as 3 bits. And with 3 bits, I can get 000 through 111. And so what happens is I might be able to say something like chmod, I don't know, 777. That's the dumb one that everybody does when they don't know how to make something work. So just give everything. And by saying 7, that fills this in with 111, which means plug in the R, plug in the W, plug in the X. That's the first 7. The next, let's make the next one a 6. So that would be 110. It would say RW blank. And let's make the next one a 5. So we'll go through and review how to do binary conversions. We did one the other day. So if I make this a 5, that would be a 101. So it would be R blank X. So there's a couple ways to change mods. I'm going to get into the whys you want to change mods and so forth. You run into this on a CompTIA, they will probably want to ask, what command would you use? Fred can't run his program. Fred can't read the contents of a file. Fred can't edit a file. Well, we're going to use chmod to give Fred the appropriate permissions. Maybe he's in the everyone. He's not the owner. Fred isn't the group. So we'll give everyone the ability to write that. Or maybe we'll put him in the group, or maybe we'll even change the owner of the file. Hey, he's the only one who's going to use it. We can change the owner of a file or a directory. You can change the owner. You can change the group, and then give those folks appropriate permissions. So the general syntax is usually have to use sudo, chown, whether you're specifying an account, so you'd put the name of the user or the group, and it always has a colon with it, and then who you're giving ownership to, or what you're giving the person ownership to. And there's lots of switches available with chown, including -R, which says you can change ownership from everything from here on down. All right, I want to demo these three guys. Hold, please. Okay. The two commands that CompTIA has listed there, IWconfig and IFconfig, are informational only, and they have different outputs. So this is a very old command, IFconfig. There's switches available after it. There we go. But just running it generically will show you information about each of the real and virtual network interfaces in your system. So here's my Ethernet 0 card, my primary first Ethernet card that has a driver installed. You don't have to care about these flags for the most part, but it supports broadcasts. It's up, it's running, it supports multicast. It has a maximum transfer unit of 1500 bytes. Its IP address, IP4, is 192.168.1.133. Subnet mask is WAC 24, 255.255.255.0. And it's on network 192.168.1, so the broadcast address is .255. I'm not going to read all this to you. You can do that. Down here, I see similar information about my wireless LAN. Got a different IP address. It's got multiple Internet 6 addresses, IPv6s. There's my FE80. That's my internal link local. There's my external. And by the way, when you do updates and upgrades with this thing, it uses native IPv6 addresses. It's very cool. Okay, there's the link local. It's shown in reverse order here. So global and link local over here. Oh, here's the MAC address. All right, so that's IFconfig. Here's IWconfig. That's for wireless. So Ethernet 0 doesn't support wireless, neither does my local internal. Oh, but WLAN 0. And here's the cool, it's the stuff that's not about the card, it's about the wireless connection. So some flavor of 802.11. I'm probably going to give a password away in here. I'm connected to SSID ADB. Doesn't give me the channel number, it gives me the actual frequency. If I wanted to know what channel I was on, I'd have to go Google the frequency chart. Here's the MAC address of my wireless access points. And the fact that I'm blazing along at 24 megabits per second, these are notoriously inaccurate. That one's probably accurate. That's why I have both hardwire and wireless set up. Now, here's a command that's not in that list, but IPconfig has officially been replaced by IP. And a lot of switches. You got to kind of learn them, but I'll give you one. If I want to see most of the same stuff that IFconfig showed me, I would say IP space address, ADDR. A little bit different information. little more, a little less here and there, but that's that. So cool commands here. Unshare, say hi. Almost done. All right, the PS command. That is a list of processes. It's kind of, there is a similar command in the command line in Windows. Yeah, whose name doesn't come to me. Scott will throw it up. But yeah, here, let's do a quick demo on one and then mention the other one, which I'm not going to actually do because I don't want to kill anything. I don't know what's happening. So PS, no parameters. Gives me a list of programs that are being run by myself. If I add to that, PS A. Now, A is all. Okay, there's all programs, but not processes running. PS AX. Oh, now we're getting a lot more info. And every one of these things in different columns shows a process ID and a name. So here's process ID number 1, the initial splash screen. It's reserved. So let's see if we can see a recognizable program that's going on in here. Light DM is what controls all the visuals and displays. There's some Apache 2 web server in there. All right, well, somewhere in there, there's a cool program. And if I want to stop that program from the command line, I would identify what his process ID is. And then I would use another command that's in the known list called kill. And I would simply kill the process ID. I don't remember what it was, but let's say it was 756. I'm not going to hit the enter key on that. I don't want to break anything right now. But if you got a program that's gone rogue, it won't quit. You can't kill it by normal methods. Open up a command line, find out what its process ID is with PS, and then use the kill command. I want to show you 2 other ways to find process IDs. Built into most versions of Linux is the top command. PS gives you a snapshot of processes. Top gives you real-time dynamic updates of processes, and it changes them based on their CPU utilization, or you can change these other utilizations around. Q to quit. And then there's one other one. I think I already have it installed in here, but you do this on any Linux system that makes you happy. Do a sudo apt or apt-get install. I'm not going to hit the enter key on this. htop. And it's a third-party improved version of top. If I just type in htop, it's got more information. It's color-coded. And it's one of those ones that doesn't require reboot. As soon as you install it, it works. Hold, please. Su and sudo. I do a lot of sudo stuff in here, and it's not something that in day-to-day operations you have to use. So first of all, be aware that there exists a su group or sudo operators group. It'll vary by Linux distro. And if your name is a member of that group, then you can use its powers to have supervisor powers. And there are 2 ways to use those supervisor powers. One is to precede a command with the word sudo. You're a sudoer. So do this thing as if I were logged in as a supervisor account. And if you use sudo, every time you want to run a command, you have to type sudo before it, or every time you want to run a power command like user add or del user. If you run su, it takes you into the supervisor shell environment. And all that does is it means you don't have to type sudo in front of everything you type. It's automatically internally typed in. So when you're done with that, don't forget to type the exit command to get out of su. apt and apt-get. apt-get is the older one and is best for automating in scripts. And then there's apt, the updated one, that's kind of used for, I actually want to type in. They accomplish 99.75% of the same thing. So I can do a lot of things with apt-get, and there's other apps. That's the advanced packager thingy. No worries, Scott. But as long as we're at it, give me what APT stands for in Linux. So we use it to install programs. We say sudo usually because you typically got to use supervisor powers to install a program. Apt, and then we can do an appropriate command like install or remove or whatever. So we got install, remove, auto clean, advanced package tool. There we go. Thank you, Scott. So we want to get rid of a package. And in fact, I'll tell you what, I'm going to remove htop and then reinstall it because that's really quick. Man, there's a big red button on Zoom that just attracts you and makes you want to click leave. All right, so sudo, and I'll use apt-get to get rid of it, remove htop. And he goes buzz, 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 grind, grind, grind. Gives me an are you sure? Yeah. Tells me how much space I'll free up, 171 KB. That may make the difference. How are we doing here? It's 47. It's okay, we're gonna make it. And then as soon as this is done, there we go, it's done. If I type in htop, it's gone. Now there may be some residual files. And if there are, and I don't know if there are, I would run something like sudo apt-get clean or auto clean or auto remove, and that should get rid of most of the rest of them. But I found one the other day that it doesn't get rid of everything. So let's reinstall it. And this time we'll use sudo apt instead of apt-get. They work the same. Install htop. Now, where is this htop? It's in what's called a repository. There is some server out there that holds programs that were designed specifically for this version of Linux, Raspberry Pi OS. And maybe Joe Schmo writes another program and has called the Raspberry Pi folks and said, hey, can we include this in your repository? And for whatever their reasons are, yeah, but not yet. It's going to take us a while to review it, or no freaking way. So he can make his own repository and put it in there, and then he'll post instructions on how to add repositories. And so this thing will go, when you do an install or an update or something like that, it will search through all the repositories in your list. Okay, so the installation is complete. I didn't have to be any particular folder. I was still in the files folder. But we run htop, and we're running again. Let me stay in there. I'm going to just read from my notes again. Yeah, all right, so this one's fun. How do I know what programs are out there? Well, there's probably two ways. One, you read about a really cool one and you're following somebody's tutorial. They say type in sudo apt install cool program, and you would do that. But if you don't know that, we can do something like this. This is not apt-get, and this isn't something you got to memorize. but this is so cool. All right, I'm a ham radio operator. Ham radio is more formally known as amateur radio. How about I do a sudo apt cache? That means go read the cache files from the repository and look for any that have this term in them. Pick your favorite term. So I'm going to throw in amateur, and this will show me any programs in the repository that either have the word amateur in their title or in their description. When you put a program in a repository, you can put a description in. Yeah, really? It's not like I didn't do this at 1 o'clock this morning. Checking my notes. Apt cache. Search. Oh, I got to use the word search. So there's a lot of amateur stuff out there. A lot of it's amateur radio oriented. A lot of it's not. So cool. That's one way to do things from the command line. But I want to show you one other program installation because I got a job for you. If you do a sudo apt get install, in fact, I haven't done this on this machine, so I will. Sudo apt install Synoptic. This is the graphical utility that does what I just did, and it's better, smarter, stronger, faster, and able to leap taller buildings with a single bound. 9 minutes. If you want to jump in for the last 10, Scott, that would be wunderbar. You help me catch up on questions while we watch the install. This isn't a long install. It's less than 2 minutes. What? Let me take a look at questions while that's happening.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hey, Scott, welcome home.
Thank you very much.
All right. That's finishing, so I'm going to look at some questions with you.
So,
man, you've been a busy guy.
Well, a lot of them were questions about a specific system that DA Carl has.
Yes, I see that.
Right. So we were just kind of troubleshooting with him.
Okay. I'm going to roll past most of that stuff up. Soldered. 2 slots. Oh, wow. Okay. So Tollwood's done some research and found that you can only use 2 of the slots.
Right.
What a waste of 4 slots, huh?
Right.
Man. Questions. Scott has answered just about everything. Yeah, okay, we're caught up on questions, but the installation is complete. So Synoptic is now installed. So all we got to do is find out where he installed it. Didn't put it in internet.
Games, obviously.
Obviously.
Just kidding.
It's not an Office one. I know that. I've done this. Why is this? I'm pausing here. Something weird is happening. Oh, there we go. Okay, no. Graphics, games. They usually install them in sequential order at the bottom. So there's my Synoptic package manager. It says, hey, prove to me you got rights to run this thing. Okay, Raspberry. So there's a graphical interface. I at least get asterisks on this one.
Right.
Hold, please, while I come up for the first time. I don't know what that is, so I'm going to say show it again next time I go in. And there we go. So now I can look for packages. I can look for them by category. There are search terms in here, up here. I'm not going to go through this right now. I just want you to see it. But awesome, awesome tool. So here's your assignment. I've got some ideas on what I'm going to do for my next presentation. But I want to talk about something cool that you're interested in. So I want you to install Synoptic on some Linux system and go and find a cool package that we might want to demonstrate, talk about, whatever. All right, there's only 3 more commands on here. In fact, I did one of them. I'm just going to mention them and then start finishing things out. We didn't get to the final file WireShark thing that I want to do, but that's cool. We can do that first thing next time.
Right.
So we got VI. VI is a text editor. Yeah, I know. So looking at Scott, we got love and hate with this thing. Let me unshare this. So it's a text editor. It's been around forever. It's insanely powerful. It's insanely fast. And you have to be very close to literally insane to understand how to use it.
Right.
So you got to type in a keystroke that indicates the next thing I'll be typing is text. And then you type in a key that indicates the next thing that I'm going to type is going to be a command to the editor. And it's cumbersome and it's ugly and it's big. And everything you need to know about it is it's a powerful text editor. Simple and straightforward. DD, disk duplicator. It is a very, very powerful disk duplicator. In fact, I did something with it the other day that I didn't know if it would do. And I just thought, I'm going to try it. I want to create my Pi so that it can boot from a flash drive. And the new Raspberry Pi 4s don't do that. So I got a Raspberry Pi 4. It's got a flash drive, or it's got a SD card in it. And I did a DD from there to a blank flash drive. And then I deleted almost everything off that SD card except the minimum boot files. And now with that flash drive plugged in, it starts with those min boot files and then everything copied over perfectly and brilliantly and ingeniously to the flash. I can duplicate SD cards with a reader and use that to make clones. So if I'm going to do 10 Raspberry Pis that I'm shipping out next week and they're all the same or maybe minor differences, I'll clone them with DD and then I'll just plug them in and change the names or anything else that needs to be customized. So that is all the commands that you got to know for A+. And there are no Linux commands at this time. Is there anything new in Sec Plus, Scott, that you're able to identify as far as commands go?
Are you gonna make me look stuff up?
No. Top of your head kind of stuff. So you don't know.
All of this
don't
stuff
sweat
is
it.
assumed, right? It's all assumed.
Yeah.
In Sec Plus. So, I mean, you need to know the output of all of these commands. If you're not working in the terminal and you're trying to do Sec Plus, then you're missing, well, you're missing half your tools. So.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, again, except for doing one other WireShark demo, which is going to be a capture of a connection to a web server using port 80.
Okay.
Think about that to yourself. Is that secure or unsecured? And what's the other port that is either secured or unsecured? So we're going to do those as demos next week. Quick
Cool.
summary, what we did today, we got 3 minutes. We made, managed, and removed user accounts.
Yep.
We installed a telnet server. We used WireShark to compare unsecured telnet with secure SSH. We reviewed standard ports for them, 23 and 22. We reviewed all the standard Linux commands that A+ objectives call for and that you're expected to know for Net Plus and Sec Plus. One thing that we didn't do, I guess 2 things, was install an Apache server. Really, really easy. Sudo apt-get install, one word, Apache 2. And you got yourself a running Apache server. And that literally takes 3 or 4 minutes.
Right.
What we're doing next Friday, my current plan, we're going to look a little bit closer into Chmod and use it.
Okay, good.
And then ideas that I'm thinking about, maybe not next week, maybe some next week, maybe something down the road, but I want to keep using this thing and WireShark to explore ports. Oh yeah, I didn't install WireShark either. We got to do that, which is almost really easy, but there's one ugly little trick to it, so you got to see. So maybe we set up a DNS server. We set up a DHCP server. Did that. Oh yeah, so we're definitely going to do this. When? I don't know. You let me know if you're interested right away or in a week or 2 or whatever. But let's set up a mail system, a computer that's got a mail client, that's got an SMTP server and a POP or an IMAP server, and create your own mail system. Now you could use that internally in your house, or you could go a little crazy. We'll have to talk about a little more security, but you could make that a mail server that you use. You'd have to do some port forwarding and a couple other goodies, and maybe DDNS, but holy canna, wouldn't that be cool instead of using Yahoo Mail or whatever email provider you're using, Proton Mail. Yeah, I'd use that still. But man, freaking cool.
Very cool. So a couple last things to say. One, happy birthday, DA Carl.
Oh, happy birthday, DA.
Yeah, he decided to spend part of his birthday hanging with us today. So,
Foolish man.
Second thing is Kevin Lopez asks, are the Udemy practice exams different from the ones sold on Total Seminars website?
You want to hit that one?
Yeah, very much so. The ones on Udemy are a very small subset. So for example, the A+ might have what, 290 questions?
390s.
290s?
Three.
390s. But there's over 1,200 questions in the Total Tester that you can get from Total Seminars. And
You're there.
there we go. And we're having a special this week just for you. I popped it in the live chat, 50% off on all of our Total Tester standalone products. Use code MMLiveComet at checkout from TotalSim.com. It's a great.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for this week. Email me, contact me, let me know what you're interested in doing next week. You can also tell us on the other AMAs. And in the meantime, you guys have a good and safe weekend. We will see you later. Go, Michael. Shut us down.
Yeah.